Welcome in. It's Sports by the Book on a Thursday morning. Happy to be with you. I'm Jeff Parles. A Thursday morning, the final one of September. Sean, you can do what you love to do on these early morning shows. There you go. All by myself here today, as always on these Thursdays. Of course, shout out to Alex and Kenny White doing an amazing job in this time slot, Monday through Wednesday, getting you ready for the week and the day that's ahead across all sports. Of course, Kenny's here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. to get you ready for the football weekend ahead. And we have a lot of content, of course, across the network as well, including our Football Frenzy show that comes for an hour by Bob Zaney, too. It's going to be great. It's going to be a lot of fun today on Punchlines at noon. All right, let's get into this Thursday. Short show for us because Gone Racing comes your way at the top of the hour on a 10 o'clock hour. Let's start with the NFL game tonight. Week 4 gets going at MetLife Stadium. The New York Giants host the Dallas Cowboys, and this has been a nice little mover. Just more on the dead numbers, other than that little move early. So open 5 behind us. Got all the way down to 4. Now coming back up the ladder to 5.5. Dallas favorite on the road at MetLife against the Giants. Total 45.5. Both of these teams 1-2. Dallas, of course, opens the year. They destroy the Browns in week 1, and everyone's all excited about, all right, well, maybe because Dak Prescott signed his contract, maybe because CeeDee Lamb came in, signed his extension. Maybe all is right in Jerry World. Maybe all is right with the Dallas Cowboys. Since then, their defense has gotten completely steamrolled. 44 points for New Orleans 2 weeks ago and 8 yards per play in that game in a 44-19 loss in week 2. Last week, yes, Baltimore was desperate. I get it. An 0-2 Raven team going to AT&T Stadium. And the Ravens won that game 28-25. The Ravens also averaged over 7 yards per play, 7.6. And before they really took the foot off the gas pedal in the fourth quarter, Baltimore was north of 9 yards per play. They averaged over 6 yards a tote on the ground as well. Just getting destroyed on the ground so far this year for Dallas has been the alarming thing. Where Alvin Kamara in that game against Dallas had over 100 rushing yards, 6 yards a pop in that game, and 4 total touchdowns. It has been an ugly, ugly start to the year for Dallas's defense containing the run and containing running backs so far. Now, you enter the Giants here tonight, where the first 2 weeks were as ugly as it gets for Big Blue. Week 1, Minnesota, we didn't know how good the Vikings were going to be at that point. Minnesota goes to MetLife. Sam Darnold looks great in week 1. Giants get out-yarded per play, 6.1 to 3.5 in that game. Jones turns it over multiple times, including an awful pick 6 to Andrew Van Ginkel. And it looks like, all right, well, not much has changed for the Giants, even with getting Daniel Jones healthy. Week 2 was a disaster in its own right. Giants become the first team in NFL history to score 3 touchdowns, not allow a touchdown in a game, and still managed to lose because they were stubborn enough not to carry a second kicker, knowing that Graham Gano was not 100%. Gano gets hurt on the opening kickoff. Giants lose to Washington 21-18, beginning Washington's stretch of going 2 games without a punt. We may get to them a little bit later in the show. They have an interesting matchup in Arizona this week. And then last week, it looked like it was going to be more of the same. Giants fumble the opening kickoff. Cleveland scores on their first play from scrimmage and a 30-yard touchdown pass from Deshaun Watson and Amari Cooper 11 seconds in. And it's like, here we go again. Here's one of the worst teams in football. But after that first sequence, the Giants totally outplayed Cleveland. Now, it wasn't impressive if you look at the offensive numbers. Sub 5 yards per play, sub 4.5 yards per carry. Wasn't great on offense, but it was good enough because guess what? They didn't turn the ball over other than that fumble. They have one other fumble that didn't lead the points. So the Giants, when Daniel Jones is economical and Daniel Jones doesn't turn the ball over, the Giants have a better shot of winning. Jones last week was 24-34 for 2 touchdowns and 236 yards. And, of course, the emergence of Malik Neighbors, who was the number one fantasy wide receiver through 3 weeks. 2 touchdowns, one incredible catch that led to one of his touchdowns. Sure seems like the Giants nailed that 6th overall pick in taking Neighbors out of LSU. If you just look at this series over the last few years, the Cowboys have owned the Giants. Dallas has won 5 in a row. They've won 11 out of 12, 13 out of 15 against the Giants. The last 5 games, Dallas is outscoring New York by 102 points. That's 161 to 59. They have just dominated the Giants. Giants haven't beat Dallas since 2021. Of course, that was a year where, for Dallas, if you remember that season, it was a 12-5 year for the Cowboys, but that Giant game was a poor performance earlier in the year. Now, you look at the way that all this structures out for the Giants. By the way, it was the 2020 season. It was in 2021, technically. It was the 6-10 year for Dallas. Giants beat them 23-19 in Week 17. This always feels like a spot and feels like a team. Dallas, we know, great against bottom feeders. Not good when the competition gets more difficult. This is the type of team the Cowboys destroy, especially over the last few years. I'm surprised this number came down to 4. Now at 5.5, I don't think you can justify betting Dallas here since you missed the best of it. Even if you had the 4.5, I still think you're okay. Now, granted, 5, dead number in the NFL. The Cowboys tonight need to get their run attack going. Here's Dallas in their first 3 games on the ground. If you're just looking at their rushing yards, their leading rusher was Ezekiel Elliott in Week 1 with 40 rushing yards. The only guy who averaged north of 5 yards per carry in that game was CeeDee Lamb, who had 3 carries for 25 yards. The Dallas running backs in Week 1 in victory, 18 carries for 66 yards. Not good at all. Barely 3.5 yards per carry, over 3 yards per carry there. Last week, again, in a big hole again, I get it, but even when they were asked to run the ball, the leading running back yards per carry was 4 yards a carry. That was Daddle, 8 for 32, and Elliott had 3 carries for 6 yards and Deuce Vaughn at 2 for 5. Totally and utterly inefficient on the ground. Now, if you look on the other side for the Giants, Week 1, Aaron Jones hit 7 yards a carry. Week 2 for Big Blue, of course, in Washington, the Commanders in that game, on the ground, you had 8 yards a carry for Brian Robinson, 4.5 for Jaden Daniels. Eckler was relatively ineffective, but still was a big day for Brian Robinson, almost 8 yards a pop. Last week against Cleveland, that was the first week the Giants did a good job on the running backs. Deshaun Watson was the only guy over 4 yards per carry in that game. So if you're Dallas, this is the game, and I hate to use the old cliche, but we'll use it right here. Establish the run. If you're Dallas, this is the game you got to get your run game going. You got to get your offensive line run blocking better. You got to get your running backs, even though we know it's a bad running back room, arguably the worst in the NFL, you have to get going here in this game. And if you're looking across the board, prop-wise, it's a little bit difficult because the books are they are hedging themselves with the Dallas running backs in this game because you're dealing with a scenario where you're just not certain of which guy's going to be the bigger one. They're both really low totals. Elliott's only 27.5, 26.5 in most shops. Dowdle is 40.5, 39.5 on the low mark. You take a shot on one of those guys to go over the total on the rushing attack, because if you can't run the ball against this Giant team, I don't know who you're going to run the ball against. Really don't, with how poor the Giants have been against running backs so far in this season. We'll more later on Football Frenzy at 3 o'clock, but as of right now, I would be looking to those Dallas running backs. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to go Dowdle over or if I'm going to go Ezekiel Elliott over on his rushing total, but that would be my favorite play in this game. This really feels like a game where Dallas has to make a concerted effort to establish the run against a mediocre rushing defense in the New York Football Giants. Speaking of running the football, let's go to college tonight. One game. Army, as we know, service academies love running the football and can't do quite as much with the option because of new NCAA rules. The Black Knights are 3-0. I did not think this was going to be a particularly good Army team this year. And again, you beat up on Lehigh. All right. And can't make much of that. An FCS team, not a good one at that. But Army against their two FBS opponents. Now, I get it. Two mediocre CUSA teams at best here. But Army, AAC, 2-0 in American Athletic play so far, with another one right here against Temple. Beat Florida Atlantic 24-7. That game wasn't even that close. And then last week against Rice at home, 6 yards of play. Very effective in that game against Rice. Bryson Daly had a huge day. 3 touchdowns, 6.5 yards a pop for the running back for Army. Very efficient. Looking good so far this year. They go to Temple. Temple got their first win of the year last week, beating a Utah State team that just is completely lost at the moment. It's pretty funny looking at the quarterbacks of Utah State with Bryson Barnes and Spencer Petras, two guys who, of course, were at big-time power conference schools, Petras at Iowa and Barnes at Utah, and neither of them just performed at Utah State. But last week, Temple, it was their passing game where Evan Simon only completed 17 passes, but 5 of them were for touchdowns. And Simon added one on the ground. A huge day for the quarterback for Temple. 6.5 yards of play against Utah State. Temple's a little bit better than we thought, because we thought this Temple team was going to be one of the worst teams in the country, if not the worst FBS team other than Kent State. Temple outgained and out-yard per play Coastal Carolina in an 8-point loss 2 weeks ago. Of course, last week they get the 2-touchdown win. They were not good against Navy, though. 38-11, and Navy did whatever they wanted on the ground in that game. Whatever they wanted. Navy had their 2 leading rushers in that game were Blake Horvath and Alex Tezza. Horvath, 8.5 yards a carry, 15 for 122, so 8.1. And Tezza had 9 for 92 and 10 yards. That's over 10 yards a pop. Watched a lot of that game against Navy because we had some plays in-game on it. But this is a really, really good spot for Army, even on the road. Granted, familiar confines for Army. An Army-Navy game is very often played in Philadelphia. Tonight at the Link, of course, home for Temple. Going to be a very different environment tonight for Army going there, where Army-Navy's, of course, full, and Temple barely draws 20,000 people in a 65,000-seat stadium. I don't love laying this many points with a service academy on the road. And this may be a really good in-game spot here, where you can tell when you have teams that are just unable to stop the option, you can lay a lot of points. You can get away with it. And I'm very curious to see how much of Temple's offensive resurgence last week against Utah State was just a mirage. Was it just the fact that Utah State's a really bad football team right now? More so than Temple figuring it out themselves. This is a lean to Army at 12. I can't quite get all the way there to bet Army as the 12-point favorite in this game, but you know what? That might change by the time this game starts. And I'm curious if this game also gets bet down and people see a service academy laying so many points and just take points with Temple and then flip it, and basically then it'll be, if it's Army 11, I would very happily lay 11 with Army. A lot more outs in the final score if you're laying 11 as opposed to laying 12. But this feels like a pretty good matchup for the Black Knights, even in a road game in Philadelphia against the Temple Owls. All right, we'll take a quick 1-minute break. When we get back, we shift gears to baseball. We'll also look later in the week at college football, the NFL, and the Final Four in the WNBA is set. We'll give you some series prices, which are readily available here at the South Point. That's next, Sports by the Book, right here at the South Point studio.
We have 11 amazing restaurants featuring a wide variety for every price range and appetite. South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or, if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day, plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, you can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups. Or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south of the border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside.
Welcome back in Sports by the Book, South Point Studio. I'm Jeff Parles. Happy to be with you as always here on these Thursday mornings. Of course, this is just the beginning of the day here at the studio. Of course, you saw Ralph Sirocco on Race Day Las Vegas earlier on the South Point Studio channel. And of course, over on that channel, Gone Racing comes your way at 10 o'clock. Jeff Motley, Brennan Gone, get you ready for the weekend in NASCAR. And then, of course, Frank Nicotero, Punchlines comes your way at noon. And then Ryan McCormick and I, busy days now on Thursday and Monday for Ryan McCormick, comes your way at 3 o'clock. Football Frenzy, fully getting you ready for the Giants and the Cowboys. And also, we'll see if Ryan McCormick has a college play on that game we talked about just moments ago on Army and Temple. We'll give you our thoughts on Football Frenzy as well. And, of course, our power rankings, which, boy, our NFL power rankings, definitely a lot different heading into week 4 than they were a week ago. All right, let's go to baseball today. Real quick here, pennant races as we go through it, starting on the National League side. The Mets and the Braves postponed yesterday, postponed tomorrow. Today, I should say. If needed, the Mets and the Braves will play 2 games in Atlanta on Monday before whoever advances out of that goes to the wild card playoffs the next day. Brilliantly poor job by Major League Baseball not getting in front of it. We knew Hurricane Helene was going to go through Georgia earlier in the week. All they had to do was just shift this series, impose it on Monday, doubleheader Tuesday. It would have been totally fine. Instead, you potentially have 2 playoff teams playing 2 games on Monday before going right into the wild card round. Not good. Not a good job by Major League Baseball at all. So that game tonight, which was supposed to be Manaea and Fried, which was going to be an amazing pitching matchup, along with yesterday, axed for the Mets and the Braves. Atlanta will welcome Kansas City to Atlanta this weekend. We'll see if they're able to play tomorrow. More likely than not, it'll be a doubleheader on Saturday and 1 on Sunday. And then the Mets go to Milwaukee. They'll play 3 at AmFam Field. We know those games will be played because there's a dome in Milwaukee. So we know that. All right. Let's go to the games that are actually happening in Major League Baseball today. The Padres are still not out of the National League West race, but the Dodgers can clinch tonight at Dodger Stadium in Chavez Ravine. It's going to be awfully difficult for San Diego after losing last night to be able to catch the Dodgers. They really needed to sweep this series to give themselves a chance. Padres 3 behind L.A. entering tonight. They sent Joe Musgrove to the bump against Walker Buehler, who has had plenty of his struggles here. If the Dodgers win tonight, the weekend for the Dodgers will just be for seeding, as L.A. will have the NL West clinched. Also, they can clinch a bye with a Milwaukee loss this afternoon in Pittsburgh and a win tonight for the Dodgers. So could be a very, very restful weekend at Mile High in Colorado for the Dodgers if they win tonight and Milwaukee loses this afternoon as a small favorite against the Pittsburgh Pirates. I would only bet San Diego, though, in this game. See if you can get a plus price by the time this game starts. I really think that this should be San Diego as a slight favorite, more so than anything. If you got the underdog prices on the Padres last night, well done. The better pitcher resides with the Padres. I thought that earlier in the week, the Padres should have been favored on Tuesday. They, of course, won that game last night, stayed off of it completely. Of course, the Dodgers win on an Ohtani hit that ends up winning it for L.A. 4-3 last night and getting them one step closer to winning the National League West. All right, on the American League side, there's no postponed games, which is good for everyone involved in that playoff race. But entering today, so the American League East is still technically alive. We'll get to Baltimore and the Yankees in a little bit, but the Orioles would have to win the remaining 4. The Yankees would have to lose the remaining 4 in order for Baltimore to catch them. Cleveland is locked in. They're also locked in to getting a bye. They've won the American League Central. The Astros are locked in as American League West champs and as the number 3 seed in the American League playoffs. And then, after the Red Sox got eliminated last night, you have 4 teams for 2 spots in the American League wildcard chase. Entering today's action, the Kansas City Royals and the Detroit Tigers are 2 games ahead of Minnesota. They're 2.5 in front of Seattle. Seattle cannot get eliminated today. Even if both teams win, they still would have a tiebreak over Detroit. So they would still have an opportunity in order to get in. But the Mariners, they're basically a dormie if you want to take a golf term at this point. At the will of their opponents. They're off today after winning in Houston yesterday afternoon. The Tigers up first. Of course, Detroit just playing out of their minds. Out of their minds. 8 of their last 10. They've been the best team in baseball since August 8th. And have gone from 10 games back at the beginning of August to, realistically speaking, massive favorites to make the playoffs at this point. 2 games clear of Minnesota with a game against Tampa today, and then 3 against the White Sox. Actually, I should say the red-hot White Sox, who have won 2 straight games against the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim the last 2 days. Going to be Olsen and Alexander, your pitching matchup at Comerica today. -155 behind us, which is the best number on Detroit, period, in the market on this game. Open -158. Got bet pretty aggressively to Detroit as high as -175. Now back at -155, this would only be a play on the Tigers in a game that begins at the top of the hour. Also, if you get an 8, which you can behind us on the total, I would absolutely bet this thing under. Absolutely bet this thing under at 8. Weather is very fall-like in Detroit today. Wind blowing side wind more than anything, a crosswind, I should say. But we'd totally be looking to Detroit in the under in this one in Motown, and the Tigers just getting one step closer yet again to win a wild card spot in what looked like a season they sold, and properly so. They'd be safely in if they had Jack Flaherty right now as opposed to trading him to the Dodgers, but you know what? It was the right move when they did it at the time. They were completely out of it. I do want to bring this up. I have no betting angles on the A's and the Rangers. Ginn and Rocker, your pitching matchup. Final game ever in Oakland for the franchise. I know they're coming here. We all feel for that fan base in the Bay Area. That what has happened to them over the last few years. We know that is a passionate fan base that the A's have. The team has been given no chance to succeed, and it's sad to see what has happened there. And look, we're grateful that a Major League Baseball team is coming here to Las Vegas, but the fashion that it has happened has even given us not the best of stomachs as well. No play on this game. Just wanted to at least shout out the A's fans coming out in droves the last few nights there in Oakland. All right, let's go to the Bronx. Burns and Cole. What a pitching matchup at Yankee Stadium tonight for the Orioles and the Yankees. Cole's a -145 favorite at home, +135 on the O's, total of 8. You know, I will say this, because it is very possible that the Yankees and Orioles match up in round 1, in the division series, I should say. The Orioles, of course, will have to play a wild card series. Will they be favored? The Baltimore Orioles, if they win today, will be 9-4 in the regular season against the New York Yankees. They will have owned the Yankees, including sweeping this whole week series in the Bronx when the Yankees only need 1. The Yankees will clinch the division over the weekend against the Rangers. But boy, if Baltimore just did not melt over the last few weeks, you really would have had a real race here. And this could have gotten very interesting over the weekend, especially with the Orioles having the tiebreak. Only lean would be to the total under here. I know home run balls have been problems for Cole and Burns at times this year. But this would only be a lean to the under of 8, even in that ballpark. I think this probably is the night the Yankees wrap the division up, and then a hangover game on Friday, where we'd probably be looking at betting the Pirates in that one at Yankee Stadium. The other wild card teams involved here, the Royals, finally, after losing 7 in a row and 9 out of 10, win the first 2 in D.C. They're minus 170 favorites today with Michael Wacha against Patrick Corbin, who makes his final start as a Washington National this afternoon. His contract after what he signed after the World Series championship, that 5-year deal expires after the season. We know Corbin's not going back. More likely than not, Corbin will retire. But this is his final start as a National. That is an angle for me here. I would lean to the Nats at plus 155. The Royals, even in the last 2 days, it's not like their offense has really woken up. Needed 10 innings to get on the board on Tuesday. Only won 3-0 yesterday. Would not be surprised. We saw Corbin beat up on the Yankees with his best outing probably since 2019 earlier in the year. Wouldn't shock me if he has one more good one in him today. I'll take the Corbin Day, usually great going against him. I like Corbin and the Nats today, plus 155 behind us. And then the Twins, finally, they were in a 3-0 hole yesterday against the Marlins. I was like, all right, well, this thing might be over before the weekend. Big 7th inning where they go from tied to an 8-3 win. The Twins will send Daniel Festa to the mound today. Not the greatest pitchers that you want in a must-have game against Belloso of the Marlins. There's nothing to be had in this game. The only thing I'd even look at possibly going over 8.5. See if you can get less juice by the time this game gets going at 6:40 Eastern time. All right, one last thing I want to bring up today. We'll get more college football and NFL thoughts later in the day on Football Frenzy at 3 o'clock. I just want to bring up the WNBA real quick. We'll throw this out there first. The WNBA desperately needs to change their playoff format. You're just not getting long enough series at this point. It's time. The players can handle it. The league is more than enough time at this point. Make the first round best of 5. If you want to keep round 2 as a best of 5, fine. And then your finals need to be a best of 7. That's what it should be at this point. This best of 3 where the better team gets home court leads to these 2-game series. There's only been 2 series. They flipped to this format 4 years ago now, and there have only been 2 series that have even gone to a game 3. You need to change the format. But with that said, we have dynamite matchups in round 2. Series prices behind us. Just want to throw this out there. It's both of these series starting on Sunday, so a few days off for all these teams. We get a finals rematch from a year ago. Las Vegas takes on the New York Liberty. The Liberty with home court, minus 165 favorites, plus 155 on the Aces. The Aces got pretty well owned by the Liberty this year. They didn't beat them in any of the matchups. Liberty went 3-0 against them. It would only be a lean, though, to the defending champs, the 2-time defending champs. At this price, it's hard to pass that up, especially when before the playoffs, it was barely 2-1 to win the title on the Aces in most shops. You only have to win one series in order to get to the final. I think I would lean to the Aces at this point at the plus 185. And in Minnesota, Collier's so good. So good. 30-plus points in both playoff games for Collier. Minnesota dispatches of the Mercury, probably the end of Diana Taurasi's legendary career. The Sun, dispatch of Caitlin Clark in the Fever in 2 games. This one has taken some money. So this opened minus 240 on Minnesota. Now it's minus 220 on the favored Lynx, plus 190 on Connecticut. This would only be a lean to the favorite. Minnesota matches up great with Connecticut, and I think Connecticut's going to struggle to score in this series. So this would be a play on the Minnesota Lynx at minus 220. All right, let's bring them in. Let's get a quick preview of Punchlines coming at noon. My co-host on Football Frenzy on Monday and Thursdays, which you'll see at 3 o'clock right here on the Sports by the Book channel. It's our good friend Ryan McCormick. Big show coming up at noon on Punchlines FN on YouTube.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. We've got Bob Zaney, comedian, joining us for the entire hour-long show, noon to 1.
Is Frank going to make it?
Let's hope so. Hopefully I make it as well. And then we've got Joe D'Amico joining us via video for the last 20 minutes, 12:40 of the show. So always the good, fun stuff. We've got the Punch Bowl today and 12 picks at 12:36. And, of course, you'll get your Moonshine Moonshot. So Punchlines FN, separate YouTube page at noon. Bob Zaney, Joe D'Amico, Frank Nicotero, and myself will be there.
It'll be a lot of fun on Punchlines FM. By the way, if you've watched with us this morning, shout out to Vince in Las Vegas for watching the show and commenting on our show. Of course, follow that link later in the day to our Football Frenzy show. If you're watching right now, 3 o'clock, Ryan and I get you ready for Thursday in football, and also get the week, let's be honest, get the week ahead as well before Vinny and Chris come in tomorrow for the big Football Friday show. All right, that's all we have for you. Gone Racing comes up at 10 o'clock. Jeff Motley, Brendan Gaughan get you ready for the week in NASCAR on the South Point studio page. I'm Jeff Parles. Thank you for watching this morning. This has been Sports by the Book.